It's the Dev Friday Show with Mark and Tim.
There we go. Must be Friday because Mark and Tim are... Wait a second.
Whoa.
Yeah, what's up with this?
We're totally switched around, Tim. What's
I must
going
have
on
dragged things the wrong way. Mark's on the other side. We're not even looking the right direction.
I know.
You look towards me and I look towards you, and now we're not even looking at each other.
We had it in sync before, and now you messed it all up.
I don't even understand this. Let's just do one of these things.
I'm gonna have to look.
That's better. That's better. Okay.
There you go.
All the podcast listeners are going like, what are they even talking about? Well, if you listen to the podcast, you get to hear us a week after we actually do it, right?
That's right. That's the plan.
But if you want to see it live, if you want to see this unfold, you can follow the Dev Friday Show Twitter account because we live stream there. And if you can find it like combing through, I don't know, the dark back alleys of YouTube, you might be able to find a Dev Friday Show channel on YouTube that also live streams it. But that's how we live stream this thing. Now the audio is not as good.
I thought you were going to say the dark web there for a minute. I was like, whoa, we're on the dark web?
No, I don't think so.
Are we somewhere on the deep dark web?
I don't know how to find the dark web.
I love when people talk about the dark web, and I'm like, ooh, where's this dark web?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, yeah. It's the part of the internet that only the bad people are at. I don't know. Do you think criminals don't use email?
It's a secret place on the internet where you need like the special password code and the special handshake to get into.
Exactly. You don't just yep. No, it's like left, right, up, down. I forget how it goes, but then you're there. You just do that on your computer and you're there. So how's the art department website build process and content management system project going?
It's going. I was going to talk to you about my priorities and how that's been shifted a little bit because of, and I don't want this to be, I was thinking about this on the show today.
Your priorities at your academic job have shifted, or just your personal desires and wants?
Personal desires and wants, and what I complain about in the show, because I have found that I have been complaining about my job a little bit too much on this show.
All right.
So I don't want it to be like, all right, I just hate
you haven't complained about your job.
Well, a little bit here and there. More about looking forward to the transition and sense.
Yeah,
of like,
I've never got complaining as much as just you're pretty much gone and you're not even operating as if you're still a teacher.
I'm there, even though I'm happy. This is the final week before spring break, so I have a week and a half that I'm looking forward to doing some side projects here. So
wait, now you're gonna do side projects? Because I thought your week and a half of spring break was going to result in you completely transitioning to teaching using Linux.
Well, that's true. That is on the agenda, Tim, and I'm super excited because Windows is falling apart on me around me.
Is it really?
Oh my gosh,
I've never really had a problem with Windows.
Well, think about from your daily use, how much do you use it?
Not much. I mean, I'll admit that. Windows to me is a glorified web browser that I also run Slack in, and I run Zoom in, because any type of communication with the team, I do on the Windows machine that's separate from my dev machine. Yeah. Because I don't necessarily want those two things colliding, even though there's enough power in the dev machine I built last year for all of that. And any application that can only work on Windows. And as I say that, I remembered something very terrible. And that's that one of the applications that I run on Windows, you know what this is, right? One of the applications that I run on Windows is my audio mixer. And apparently I have forgotten to hit record. And
so I did too. I just did too. Right when I saw your face, I was like, I know what you're talking about. I forgot to hit record. Well, at least we forgot to hit record at the same time, and we should be in sync now.
Something like so. For those of you who are listening to the podcast, the audio just should have immediately gotten better, more high fidelity. This is what you're used to. Yeah. So I run Fusion, anything that I need to run only on Windows.
It's been interesting because I don't know. It's weird. We're like I had a real bad issue. It started yesterday, and I had it again today. Have you ever had a weird? Well, I run a dual monitor setup. Like I said, you don't use Windows in a dual monitor setup, do you? You pretty much just one screen.
I do. Yeah, no. I've got. It's a Surface Studio laptop, so the screen's up here, and then underneath it, I have a screen mounted vertically that I run Slack in. Because to me, Slack works well vertically.
So the issue that I've been seeing, and it hasn't happened forever, but all of a sudden it's been happening. I'm worried it's going to happen to the show too, where I'll just lose control of my mouse. And my mouse will be in the bottom corner of my of the screen that I'm extending my desktop into. and I can't move it. I can't access until I turn off that monitor. And then I turn off the monitor. The configuration gets reset. The mouse
comes stuck in the second monitor.
It gets stuck. And if I move the mouse back and forth really fast, I can see the little cursor moving in the corner, but it won't.
Locked.
Yeah, it's super, super weird. It happens at the most awkward times. I'm not sure. I can't pinpoint it why.
But basically, disconnecting the monitor forces your display. Whatever the display.
So something's going on with the configuration of the display and something like that. So I'm like,
that's super interesting.
And it's just Windows thing, and it's happened to me before. And I'm like, and all it's like, I can't unzip zip files on Windows anymore. I don't know why. It's just unless I use 7-zip.
What?
It's just an annoying thing.
How did this break?
Came up when I was like reviewing.
Wait. What version of Windows are you on? Turns out it's on Windows for Workgroups.
Well, I haven't moved to Windows. What's 11 now?
11, yeah, I'm on 11.
Yeah, how's it going for you?
There was just like one or two weird things that got fixed with an update.
Okay.
I think it was display driver issues, and so I have two Surfaces. I have the Studio laptop, and I have a Surface Pro. I think it's 6 or something like that. That was my first venture into this because I was like, does the Surface make sense for me as what I want from a portable machine, and it did, which is why I got the Studio laptop. But the older Surface 6 tablet, the Surface Pro, the thing with a kind of felt keyboard thingy that clips on.
Yep.
When I took the keyboard off, it didn't respond to touch input, which is kind of like exactly the opposite of what you wanted to do. It didn't work, so it needed a keyboard. But after Windows Update, yes, there's a Service Pack, cumulative update for Windows 11. Put that in, it works just fine.
So I wonder, since Microsoft's trying to push everybody to Windows 11, and I've been holding back upgrading my system for it because I've heard some.
That's definitely it. They have pushed the mouse locked in corner and
that's what I think was happening. So they're pushing secret
totally
updates behind the scenes to make my computer worse under Windows 10.
Well, it's not that there's secret updates. It's that Microsoft has such a good idea about when they're going to release software. It doesn't have to be an update. Windows 10 was programmed to have these issues right at this time because they knew 11 would be out. That's just how far their product forecasting is and how good they are at estimation.
It's not a bug, it's a feature.
That's right. Yeah. So Windows is falling apart.
So yeah, and zip files is still like weird because I was reviewing a lot of student work this week with students in classes, and like when we were doing my remote classes with them, and I can't I unzip a zip file and there's nothing inside of it. There's nothing inside the folder.
Maybe your students just aren't doing work.
Well, actually,
maybe all of your students have said, if we just send him empty zip files, he'll think it's his computer.
Probably true. I think it's interesting with Replit. So most of my students in my web classes are working off of Replit, and I asked them to, as a backup, send me a zip file of your files, and you could hit the little download button to download their project as a zip file. I wonder something interesting that Replit's doing now behind the scenes when they're compressing it into a zip, and something's not compatible with the default Windows built-in zip functionality in the Explorer window that you have. So what I do is I just have 7-zip as a backup to fix it. That seems to be working, but it's just weird. It's just all of a sudden this week it just stopped working for me, and I was like, all right, can't unzip anything. So yes, next week will be the week that I'm switching over to full-time Linux on the desktop, and I hope to only have to use Windows for gaming.
Nice.
So it'll be an interesting trial because
you're at the point where you are dual booting.
Correct, but I'm dual booting with two hard drives. With with like my Windows is still going to be on my MM2 SSD, chip in a sense, or the card there, and then I have an SSD that's pretty fast that I have Linux installed on now too. So I just switch with the dual boot, and that seems to be switching back and forth. That's totally fine. And
so now it's just migrating your workflow to be entirely on Linux.
Because I tested out all the software. Oh my gosh. And like just using like Inkscape, because I was using Inkscape a little bit this week too. Oh my gosh. And it's just night and day compared to like Windows, because it is designed for
really?
Linux. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, well, that's true. You're right.
On my Surface Go small little minimal laptop is so much faster than running on this beefed up Windows system that I have, and running Inkscape. Comparing on the two is like it's a different experience.
I think for me it's the UI for it's specific to Inkspace. Inkspace.
Inkspace. That'd be a good name of startup.
That'd be a different
Inkspace.
One. Yeah, Inkspace. Yeah. It's pens that can write on the International Space Station if it doesn't crash into us. The issue I have is because I run we talked about this in brief last week. All my presentations I do SVG, and then run them through SOSI, which is a Prezi-like thing.
Which is pretty slick. You show me
Yeah,
after that.
no, it's great. Yeah. It's great. So when I'm working on the laptop, sometimes if I'm doing, because I teach Sunday school every Sunday, and sometimes there's a presentation with it. So if I'm doing that away from my dev machine, like if I'm doing a presentation on technical topics, I'm probably at my desk putting it together. But if I'm not, if it's a different presentation for something like Sunday school, I'm probably doing it on my Surface, and that's what I'm using Inkscape there. I can't even say the word of the application now. That's where I use Inkscape on the Surface, and the UI doesn't work as well. I don't know if it's that I'm using the trackpad instead of a regular mouse. I don't know if that's the hang up. I can't really put my finger on
that
why
was
it
that was
clunky.
a little bit. Yeah, when I used it on my Surface Go initially was just with the trackpad. And yeah, there was some, but once you plug in a mouse to it, I always think like just the refresh rate and just how fast it opened up and just, the operations doing within the file, it just seems so much faster. But yeah, I agree with you. Like, don't use Inkscape without a mouse.
It may be that. Well, it may be that too, that I'm just not able to put my finger on why it feels harder to work.
Yeah.
And if it is like slower redraw, all that kind of stuff, that could very well be it. Well, so moving to Linux.
So the
Your
biggest thing
students are going to be excited, I'm sure, when instead of zip files, they get GZipped files now.
We can still do zip on Linux. You can still do it. But it's interesting too. My biggest concern is the OBS and the video recording, everything like that. And Zoom works pretty well, but I haven't really need a lot of video testing, streaming with it. So it'll be interesting, kind of setting that up. So.
Yeah, I've not either from that side of things. I've used well, what have I used? Kdenlive, and I forget there was another one for nonlinear video editing on Linux. But for anything I've done live, I've just done that on. Well, I'm guessing it is Linux. I'm guessing the hardware switches are running Linux behind the scenes. But yeah, all the stuff that I do live is through an ATEM. So I've not played with OBS or anything like that on my Linux box.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to it because, like we talked about before, like context switching has kind of been a big thing for me of like, keeping my focus and peace of mind when I'm kind of switching between projects, stuff like that. So when I'm like doing most of my schoolwork on Windows and my classes, and then when
you switch to Linux to do some development.
I like the experience of developing, but yeah, the whole switch, it just takes I just gotta like
for sure
get back into it. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'll have to report next week saying how did the week of Linux go, but
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. But what are your new priorities?
My new priorities is, well, I got to think, okay, I'm not going to stay focused on leaving my job. Eventually that will happen. I think we all go through transitions in life, Tim.
Did they tell you to stop talking about this? Is that what this is?
Maybe one or two people. But, and so, like I said, I'm not too worried about it in a sense because I have tenure, so I don't really care. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, okay, I totally understand. Got to be respectful. And I was like, also got to keep myself in a good mindset. But the reason why I've been doing so much, Tim, it's been a little bit liberating because I've actually been thinking about this for like a couple
to think
years.
About the future or to talk about the future?
Yeah, talk about the future.
To be like what I've been thinking about can actually happen.
Yes, because, just like the secret, Tim, you gotta believe it. You gotta want it for it to happen.
Like the
right?
secret, right?
You have to envision it, right? So talking about it
this from a
is
couple
a step
episodes
to
ago. Okay.
So, but it's been like I said, we talk about therapy. This is part of my therapy. So it's good process to kind of get it out, talk about what I'm thinking about, especially regarding to like future plans. Because when you're in academia, it's kind of like, yeah, you could do contract work or consulting project over the summer and that, kind of fit that with your schedule. But then it's kind of like, I can't be like in a meeting or department meeting saying like, oh yeah, I wish I could be working for this company, or doing this type of project. You know what I mean? We have sabbaticals, which I feel like I've kind of like, maybe I should have tried to maybe extend this and maybe a couple more years and got in that sabbatical semester. Cause I kind of do with it, but then I don't know that I'd have to sign myself up for being here longer. So I don't know if I want to commit to that. But anyway, my priorities, thinking about, okay, so if I own a timeline, we're like, I'm feeling positive about like, say the start of the summertime. I really want to starting to put myself out there and start talking to people. And I, just like you, I have a few connections with people that work at some big companies and wanted to kind of start talking to them, get some references.
Connections?
Oh, you probably do. Just
I'll
people that work at companies that you might be interested in talking to and seeing what options there are. So put it that way. And then I want to start doing that process, figuring it out. Even if something doesn't work out this summer, okay, it's a little good fallback to, I don't mind. We'll stick around here for another year. That'd be totally fine. But what could I do to kind of set myself up? Because like I said, my personal projects I'm working on, I need to have a little bit of portfolio to show and kind of
That's
to
true.
talk about.
Well, I mean,
So,
maybe. I
well,
guess.
because coming at we talked about this in
Yeah,
the
because you're
past,
coming
like
from a
coming
design
at
standpoint,
academia,
right?
design, but also just small projects, very small design oriented projects. But that's things I struggle with too with my sanity and the fact that like most of my demonstrations are super simple because the content I'm teaching regarding to like web design and some web development is it's kind of basic, and I'm not going to be doing a lot of my animation work or animation. I'm not going to be looking for a job in that area. So it's kind of a lot of the demonstrations I have that I use in class are very, very simple. And I could talk about that. If I would want to go, which I thought in the past of doing more of like corporate training or doing more documentation, style positions, that could possibly be something. I'm not sure if I'd be happy doing that. I don't know. But that's something that would actually be an easy transition of going from academia into like a corporate setting where dealing with like, helping with but you've had like the evangelistic roles
Right.
in the past, and
And
then also doing support or training that would
and
it's
that had
kind
some
of
similarities.
interesting. Yeah,
There's some similarities to what you're talking about as to going from that back into normal programming. You go from writing simple examples, right,
yeah,
that are just there to communicate a concept to, oh, I have to actually program stuff now. I have to make
yeah.
sure it works. And that's a little different. It's a little different.
It's true. So I was thinking about my project that I keep chipping away at my site build,
Sitebuild.io, by the way, not
site
a
by
sponsor. Not a sponsor,
And
but sitebuild.io.
my whole idea behind this, because like I said, where I really want to go in, let's say, if I could see myself, project myself out 3 to 5 years, and what type of position do I want to have, is somewhere in regarding to doing some type of user interface design that's related to machine learning, AI, because I do feel that is there's going to be some component in the future where a lot of the user interfaces that we do will be automatically customized to our patterns. Just think about this today. It's interesting to think about the normal configuration we do on our computers, from like setting up themes, like from light theme to dark theme to type sizes to different or icon sizes, variations how we customize the user interface to fit our whatever how we like to have our interface look and feel. I think a
Are you
lot of
just
those
working up to
choices.
telling me that you had to increase the font size in your IDE, Mark?
I don't. I
Have
didn't
you
do that lately.
have you but you have done it in the past, right?
I have done it in the past, yes.
Yeah, that was that when I had to do that the first time. I'm like, oh no,
It's
why am
mostly
I
with
doing this?
It's mostly with the text sizes too, because with you primarily work off a code editor, thinking about okay, you try to man it up and say like, yeah, I can read that small type.
I can totally do
do it.
that. I can put all this code on one page.
But then
What
when
are
you
talking
find
about?
yourself squinting or feel like your eyes are getting tired, you're like,
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't be doing that.
I blame some of it on the fact that now we have these high resolution monitors or screens or whatever, and
Yeah.
it's hard to tell what the size is because you're already doing size changing to make sure that things look right on a high resolution screen. I also blame it. Have you? Well, I don't know, because you're using Vim in Emac or whatever you're doing, like the
Doing Max.
Vim mode in Emac, right?
That's right. Yep.
Right, the
Yep.
evil mode.
Yep.
I use Code with ligatures. So, like, if you do an equals equals equals, which in PHP is a identity comparison, it shows it as 3 lines, not just like 3 equals. It's a single equals, but it has 3 lines. Not equals. If you do not equals, it's not. It's an equals with a line through it. So it uses ligatures
Okay.
to actually
Yeah. I
change.
gotcha.
So you can communicate a little bit better, and I blamed my need to bump up my font in my IDE a little bit
So you can
on
see
the
these
fact that I
symbols
changed
clear, yeah.
fonts,
There you
and
go.
that I claimed that Code was smaller, so that's why I had to bump it a couple points.
So getting back to, I do feel that the AI, I know we differ on how much freedom will give the AI to change our environment, change our user interface. But I do feel that's kind of part of user interface. It's just like, I believe like websites or web designers now that they're learning how to design websites. I think a lot of it will be machine driven in the future. That I think that's kind of with site build. I think that could be an interesting thing of analyzing or doing a lot of learning on how websites are laid out and designed, and then automating that process for a new website, because we already see that already with templates, and templates
Right.
have taken over the industry, and even in commercial situations with
Templates and
companies
themes, right?
yeah. So it's like, and if you're a really good web designer, web developer, you could flip a project super fast if the client's okay with it, saying, yeah, I could use this template, build this out for you, and it would cost this much to be this time and be super fast. That's
And not
maybe
even
the
if you're
best solution.
like not even pulling someone else's template, but even just using having a set of templates you
Correct.
use
Yeah,
instead of
correct.
themes
Yeah.
you
Either way.
use, and just be like, okay, I specialize in this type of customer facing, business website. Here's the 4 different structures that I have. Each one has 4 different flavors of themes, and then I just kind of throw in your content and give you this. Well, which one do you like? You pick one, we turn it around, we're done.
Yeah. So a couple weeks ago, I read a post on Hacker News, like you often do, like once or twice a week. You check that and just see what the hackers are talking about, right?
Right.
On the dark
right.
on the dark web.
On the dark web, yeah. Yeah.
And there was a really
We
good
can't
post.
tell you all how to get to Hacker News. You'll have to figure that out yourself. You'll have to go to the dark web search engine and find it there.
And there was this really good post from a guy who posted about what I learned from running my startup over the past year or something like that. And it was just a single startup. He did a simple application for doing a server uptime tracking, right? Like those ping.io or something like those.
Right.
Style sites. There's a million. He even admits there's a million of
Down
them.
detector.
Yeah.
Is it down for me? All these things.
So there's a ton of different sites, but he was just, I guess he needed that solution for whatever his company that he's working for, or just whatever for his purposes. And he thought it'd be an interesting business just to do a small product on the side and just to see where it goes. So he documented his process over the year with multiple blog post articles. And then he did like one big summary post, just kind of talking about the process and his journey over the past year. And so I thought it was kind of interesting thing about, because if you have like an idea, like I said, sitebuild.io is what I've been thinking about regarding to like AI driven design. That's where I kind of want to take, especially when regarding to user interface design. But if I wanted to release it like in 2 weeks, because that's what he said he did it like he did a prototype.
That's always good. MVPs are great.
That people could sign up for within a week. He built it within a week, and he had people sign up for it, and then he just built a minimal set of features little by little, based on his own needs or also feedback he got from other people who was actually using his product.
You know what's even better than an MVP? Just a sign-up page that you fill out the form and it tells you that you'll be notified when it comes.
Oh, I used to be
the
master of that, Tim. Remember back in the days when we had the startup weekends and the hackathons?
I remember LaunchRock, which launched its startup weekend using their own product.
That's right. So those were always fun to like throw out there. Did you ever work for? There was one project that we talked about doing. Was there anything ever come out of that? But there was like a company who wanted to do like a landing page style startup product, sort of like LaunchRock, but for campaigns, for like not for like email marketing campaigns, but for like specific kind of single page websites for campaigns. It's been a while. It's been like
I don't remember
5 or 7 years ago.
So many bad ideas have been told to me, so it's just hard to keep them all straight.
I think it kind of like we had conversations with them, and then they kind of dragged their feet about something. And I was kind of like, all right, I'm timed. I can't promise I can work with this because they can't kind of guarantee that we could actually start the project. So I was like, all right.
I mean, that also sounds like almost everybody that you talk to, so it's not really helping me locate it, right? So
if you could count the number of times that people found out that you're a developer and said, "Oh, I have an idea. Could you help me build this for you?" All right.
Yes. Just for the non-developers that might happen to somehow stumble across this and have made it this far into a show. Just a quick. We have our own ideas and we haven't built them, so we're probably not going to build yours just because.
That's a good point.
You think it'll be successful, and then we can ride the coattails of your success. Sorry.
That's true. If I could count the number of domains that I have bought and then deleted after like not realizing I'm not done anything with them in a couple of years, I say, why am I paying each year for this domain?
Because it's going to be great, man. Sitebuild.io is going to be great. So what is your thing that you could throw up in 2 weeks time for Sitebuild.io?
Okay. So what I was thinking, and also to kind of solve your own problem, right? I think the best solutions are my problem. Or your problem too.
Oh, I think you said my problem
too, because we ended last show about you wanting to have a website.
Yeah, there was a show before, something like that. Yeah.
But you wanting to design your website. We talked about Webflow.
Webflow,
Grape.js.
Grape.js, Webflow.
Possibly a solution for you.
I can hack together.
So I do need, just like
designs, but I can't do HTML. All that stuff.
Just like you, one of the goals I need to have, I'm going to start looking for a job again because I've been kind of feeling safe in academia, not needing to have a personal website as much. Because I have my portfolio page on the art department website. I could just source that. If I need people need to find out what I do, I can just tell them that link. But yeah, I don't
need like a markcoberline.com.
Exactly, which now is pointing to sitebuild.io, but you don't see anything except for a text saying markcoberline.com. So if I could like build like a minimal viable product for me, what do I need? Right. So I basically just need a landing page with a little bit of content, like, maybe just an initial design.
But it'd be AI driven?
No.
Just to
Whoa,
be like
dude,
the visual
we're talking about the MVP here.
I just want to know what I didn't know how much. Like is it just gonna?
Well, this is what I want to talk to you about it. I'm gonna pay. This is what I'm paying your consulting time for. Is to give me some feedback, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, if I can make a list of, let's say, a minimal set of features that I could do, and say with over a week. I was hoping to start on it on Monday, but then all the student work kind of came up, and I had to do grading. I was like, oh, I wasn't able to get to it, but I chipped away. I had a little bit of time yesterday.
Worst part of teaching.
I know, it's like they get in the way, but but anyway, like if I could come up with a list of a middle set of features that I could launch it within a week and a half. But honestly, I had spring break, so I'm like, if I get this done before classes start up again, at least to get it where I could have my markherbeline.com and have basically a website for myself done with using the exact same system, that would be kind of cool. So I'm like, okay, we need to sign up, right? So we need some authentication, some sign up, right, Tim?
I guess maybe.
Email address,
sometimes
URL.
You don't.
So with Firebase and the system I'm using with writing off a Racked and hosting on Firebase, I have the ability to do custom domains. So if an ask the user, so if you want to sign up for an account on SiteBuild and you want to basically have an initial page, initial website, you'd have like email address and URL. What do you want to use, right?
Okay.
So the user can be responsible for pointing their domain over to
like a CNAME.
Yeah, it basically is behind the scenes. It's just a CNAME. What Firebase is using. So I could automate it saying, okay, I want to create a custom domain for this customer on this account. And then as long as they point the domain to Firebase's name servers, then it'll be fine. It'll work.
Okay, right. Okay.
And then have the, basic authentication system. I'm going to use Firebase for that because they were kind of how the back end for that. Have a template. So I've been thinking about just a general template. Maybe you could also give me suggestions of what do you think would be a good template layout to use. So what I was thinking, also based on the conversation we've been having about maybe how you want to present yourself, I'm thinking like a page with like a 50 divided 50%, where like you have left or right, probably over to the left, or actually this side over here, would be an image, like a big kind of nice image, maybe a stock image, maybe you kind of talking at a conference at TEDx and stuff like that, where you could have like a nice picture of yourself. And then the other 50% be like just for text. So either have like the information that you want to display. So it'd have the ability to change, maybe change the background image, maybe also add like a profile icon image, maybe some social links underneath, kind of overlaid over top of that image. And then just have the ability just to change, maybe how many boxes on the content side that I want to be able to change, just be able to change that. So basically it just gives you a way to just have a landing page with just predefined sections that you can edit the content on.
Okay.
And then what do you think? And then go from there. So that just from a base template. So if I just want a landing page for myself, I'm just thinking just like you. So I just want to have, just a little bit of biographical information, not get too much, not going to be a CMS or a blog system yet. Like I said, MVP Tim, just start where I just basically just need the ability to have the domain, have a page that's unique to that user, to that account, along with also setting up some type of, basic kind of Stripe component to this, so it could have like some type of payment.
You want the money? System. Definitely need the money.
Well, even if they couldn't give me like a $5 kind of founders like payment per month, that would be kind of nice. But something to kind of get it going as an MVP, because if it's a product, somebody's got to pay for it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
or you're the product, as I've heard. If it's free, you're the product, Mark.
Well, eventually we could turn them into the product, right?
Yeah.
That's what Facebook does. So, I'm thinking that's at least for me. What about for you?
So a couple things.
What would you need in a page? What would you need in a page? A minimal landing page for yourself that could be a good starting point.
I would want to the domain thing. I'd be concerned if I have to point my name servers to Firebase that I would lose my email and anything else that I do at that domain. So that would be the first kind of concern.
Okay.
Now, I could do a subdomain, right? Like I could do...
Yeah, that could be automatic too, yeah.
Like I could do www, my domain points to Firebase, and then on my DNS, I CNAME something www if I wanted to. Like from a web traffic standpoint, from an A record, because I want to make sure I don't lose my mail.
So, servers. Okay, that's a good point. So let's even back up. Let's even take out the full unique URL of it. I could easily just do a subdomain of alpha sitebuild.io. So it'd be timlytle.sitebuild.
Right, and we could just forward there, redirect there, do something like that.
Correct. And then they give instructions saying if you want to turn this into your full custom URL, you could do that with these instructions.
Right.
But so it's like first version, don't even worry about it. Because I know in Firebase you can specify custom domains either as a subdomain or as a root domain, or you know what I mean.
Yeah. A top level domain. Top level, because that's more of the .coms. But okay, so that would be my first hesitation right there. Then, I mean, I like where you're going with a content block that I can edit and then kind of structure around it. And I'm guessing I'll be editing those content blocks with something like Grape.js, right?
No, my whole thought, eventually, once I add the ability to create your own themes, which is basically what you want to do eventually, to basically have some design control to lay out the the layout of the page the way you want to do it. And I am looking to integrate Grape.js into that down the road. That's not part of the MVP, Tim. Stay on the MVP. The MVP was basically just everything's going to be in line. So once you hit the edit mode, there'd be a little edit button. Once you're logged in, hit the edit button, all the text fields become text boxes.
But how do you handle stuff like I want a header, this is a paragraph, this is a bulleted list?
Well, that's all initially, that'll be all defined.
So I have to use like the predefined list or something?
Yes.
How do I create a new list?
You can't. This is MVP, Tim.
I mean, but like
minimal. Minimal.
I'm going to focus on the V here a second. I'm going to focus on V. Because if it's like I can change the heading and then like if it's a header, then a block of paragraph.
Yeah. And
like, how do I say? I also need to say, hey, I'm a speaker, I'm a developer. Like I would want those to be.
Well, you could have a big box, Tim. Maybe it could even do Markdown. You could just put you could basically have like a big box you could put the content into. I'm not sure too about the layouts of how many text boxes or view boxes you want to have within that area to make it editable, but adding new ones to make the page longer, I could definitely probably do that. So if you want to add like a new box underneath it, just basically have like a little plus button to add like a new component. I could do something like that.
And here's where I tend to be, my perspective tends to be, I don't want to write stuff that I'm going to later replace. I like to write stuff that I might refactor, but not just whole replace. So that's why I'm wondering, is the effort there with kind of the identification of, we might need to add another, add a way to add a block of text. We might need, is the effort there? Would there be similar amounts of effort to say this portion of the page is powered by like Grape.js, but with a limited set of things? You can just drag in, paragraph, drag in header.
Maybe, I don't know.
Because doesn't Grape.js give you a lot of that stuff for free?
It's possible. If you could bring in sort of its kind of component toolbar function and tie in its components so you could load it into it, it's possible. Like I said, I've looked to see if I wanted to get data out of Grape.js and integrate it into like a CMS. I've looked at that and see how straightforward it is and how the data gets saved. And I could see, that easily be done. What I'm thinking about doing is sort of, if you use like a modern kind of WordPress 4. Even though I hate WordPress,
right.
One thing they're doing really well now.
Text editor, right?
Their block editor that they have now coming from the Gutenberg system actually is pretty. It's not performance wise. It still needs to be improved, but I can see where they're going with it, and it actually is really nice. So it'd have like you could add blocks and move blocks around, and it's a little bit clunky here or there, but it actually from a user UI standpoint, actually I think it's pretty good. So that's the kind of idea of having be able to create blocks within the page to basically create your sections. Then you could drag them around and change the layout or orientation of that. But like you said, you put in the content there. Let's say you want to add another piece of content, you could reorder it or realign it, depending upon how you want.
And that's where a lot of that UI behavior is what I already see in Grape.js. So my perspective would just be, isn't it worth building the minimum there?
Maybe what I'm thinking,
have an HTML editor for that for the editable part. You could say, here's the HTML. Here it is in Grape.js with limited functionality, and then whatever you want to do, you can kind of do, because then is first you have sections of the page that if you hit edit, you either can edit the raw HTML if you want, or you can use the rich editor that is powered by a subset of Grape.js functionality. And then to me, it seems like your next step, your MVP, but the next one is to say the whole template.
Yeah. Well,
you hit a button, and then that's Grape.js editable with these little snippets that say, "Oh, here's your content block."
yes.
So you
That's
can
kind of
create
what I
a
want.
new
Yeah.
page, right? Because then you can just say, duplicate this page, same template. I just want to now change what this content says. And then now you're very much in a really lightweight CMS that seems to be trending towards what you want site build to be eventually.
So my ideas, but I think we're kind of talking the same thing. You just want me to do the later right now. But
just the first part, because it feels like it's going to take a lot of
the edit
complexity.
mode. The edit mode, yes. Start with the edit mode on basically a predefined template. Right?
Yeah.
Then
you
I have
can't edit the whole thing. You can just edit a block.
Then a design mode that basically would
Right.
bring in Grape.js that you could basically design and make your own, theme.
Right.
or
I'm just
layout.
arguing that your edit
Yeah.
mode could leverage Grape.js.
Maybe it's possible if I could bring in like a piece of Grape.js that could basically allow me to insert a component in line within that view area. It's possible.
Or
take a look at that. Yeah.
the other direction you went there, if the content block is just Markdown, to me that seems like a great MVP.
True. Yeah. Yeah.
Because like what
Yeah.
the things that stick out to me, from all the looking at product requirements and figuring out how dev team's going to build it, that for this description seemed like a big unknown is this whole, well then how do you modify the content? Because that's like we'll modify it somehow, but we don't know how. So if we can just say that's either Markdown or that is going to leverage a subset of this existing framework that we're going to use elsewhere, Grape, then it's like, okay, I can see how that happens. But without that, it feels like it's a big ambiguous thing that you're going to spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to do that. And you don't want to figure out how to do that. You either want to spend the time leveraging the framework you're going to use eventually, or punting it down the road as far as possible. And Markdown would do that for you.
Yeah, so one thing I don't want to do is over design this, because we've both been in the situations where, because I do think that's where I was going in my mindset, thinking like what this could be. And I'm always kind of planning that out. And like, that's just an endless cycle of you never will get anything done, especially when you're in a startup and you over design the product for 6 months, even before getting a prototype out there. That's good. Not a good sign.
Not good. Can't do that. Can't be doing that.
So anyway, I also thought this was kind of interesting idea. Plus also, like I said, I'm not expecting this to be like build this into something that I could leave my job for or anything like that, but it would be a project that a side project that I want to have for myself too. I mean, like I said,
to be clear, you are going to leave your job, just not for the startup.
Well, whenever the stars align where that lead me to that next part of the journey that I'm in, I will take that step.
Then it'll happen. Yeah.
Yeah. But this, because like I said, I need to get my own website up just like you do. Yeah. And I'm one to also, like I said, I've kind of researched different options, be like, should I do this? And I love Gatsby too. And I actually had my website on Gatsby for a while, and I was building that out, using the Markdown eventually. And I had different versions. I actually had a backend WordPress to it too. I was using the WordPress backend with my front end Gatsby website. And it was okay. And the build process, I had it all working on Google Cloud, and it was doing its thing. But I was like, I don't know, I kind of went away from that. Because I always had in my mind, I want to have my own website hosted on a product that I made. Because it's kind of something I keep always going back to. I feel like, okay, if I take so much time to build this, dynamic website for myself, well, why can't I just do it in such a way where I could have it be a product that somebody else could use too?
Might as well, right?
Might as well. So
two birds with one stone.
And then just thinking, it'd also be a good project to talk about, right? So, it keeps with my kind of front end UI design, but also kind of gets back into, because then I think that to take the next steps down the road with this thing about, okay, if I want to then give the ability to then have people come up with the designs, like say down, we could talk about based on machine learning and AI, we could do this extent of like, okay, let's start doing the machine learning component part of this, saying, I want to start analyzing different layouts of different websites based on the type of websites they are and the content that they're presenting. Because down the road, I want to get this to a point where people don't have to worry about even an edit mode or a design mode. They just put in their content, their text and images, right, and analyze that, and then maybe ask them a few questions.
Well,
and then be able to provide them maybe some options, some template options, or just some options saying, okay, do you prefer this to this? And then do some analysis on that based on how websites are designed.
And that right there is a great argument for go the Markdown route instead of the Grape.js that I was recommending. Because what I'm recommending is coming from then it seems like you're going to go there and allow people to move content around the page. But really what you want to do is say, give me the content and I will find a couple ways that seem like a great way to display this content, and then you pick which one you want.
Correct. Yeah.
So from that perspective, throwing Markdown in a page now is more analogous to that. Because then what you're saying in the future is going to be like, okay, here's going to be the About Us page. Here is a paragraph about each person. Here are their headshots that are tied with those paragraphs. And basically tell the AI, give me some options as to what would make this page look good. And that to me seems very similar to the direction of, well, I'm just going to throw some Markdown in here and it'll be formatted in a way that makes sense. Because you could do basically the same thing. You could even, like, so how am I going to give you this content? Well, if your MVP now is we take Markdown and we put it in the content block of the page. Then as you introduce AI, it's like we take Markdown, we analyze the structure because Markdown has a hierarchical structure, right? You've got headings, you have things like that. And then from that, we give you some options.
Okay, but how about for your experience with like the normal user, business user? They're not going to know Markdown though.
No, but I don't think your MVP is going to be ready for the business.
No,
user.
That's correct.
Like
I think for
and that's
initial
what I'm saying,
version
like,
MVP, that sounds totally. But then down the road, like, I don't want them to actually know any code at all.
Right. But what I'm saying is your iterative process can say we start with Markdown, we throw it in a block of the page, and it's pretty much Markdown to content.
Yeah.
Okay, so we enable, and at that point, what are you selling in your MVP? You're selling in your MVP a decent like landing page template, plus the ability for someone who knows Markdown to just easily make it Markdown.
Correct.
Which has value. You can do roughly the same thing with GitHub Pages and some Markdown, and some tooling, but you have to put the tooling in, and you have to hit the button, and there's some places that make that kind of easy, and this would just be another way that says, oh, we make it easy in a different way. Then the next iteration is from an AI perspective to say, okay, I'm going to analyze your content, and I'm going to see that you have one H1 and then 3 H2s. So that means you have like a main point and 3 subpoints. So we're going to try arranging that the way that we would arrange things that have a few subpoints and a big.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So take the Markdown as a bridge to.
Yeah.
And knowing what it is,
Then people that are like, oh, my Markdown now, instead of just rendering my Markdown like this, sorry for people listening, rendering my Markdown like straight down a page. I look at the hierarchy and I go, you know what? Sometimes information is displayed with a big box on top and then 3 columns underneath. And I'm going to show it to you in that way. But sometimes content is displayed with a big box on top and then a section that is left, justified with a picture, then right justified with a picture on the other side, and then we go back and forth. I'll show you that as an option too. And you can be like, oh, now we've looked at similar structure that is how it's displayed on other pages, and we've put it to you. Now you're still ingesting Markdown, because at that point you have an MVP that is still focused on a tech a more tech savvy group, and that's fine, because then your next iteration is, well, we can do the same thing with a Google Doc. We can do the same thing with a Word doc, because we can extract that information. But once we've solved the take structured data and figure out how to present it in a couple different options that seem like good options driven by AI. Now the only thing you have to say is, how do I translate different formats into the structure my AI expects? And that's just, that's not, I'm not saying it's a simple process, but that is a clearly defined goal. And if you do those one step, those steps there, you can have iterations where you make progress without having to say, we've gone from landing page to AI driven. It's got some steps along the way where you can prove each value, that you believe the value prop that each feature has. So
I didn't think interesting, because my whole thing about this, I wanted to make the UI as simple as possible, where like a normal user could do it, like just a normal business user, because that's my end kind of user. And so I'm now thinking about the developers using this product,
right?
Where I went for the normal people who just want to throw up a quick website for a product or for a campaign or for whatever, for a small business they're starting up with, and just have it be as technically as minimal requirements as possible. But I like your idea of using the Markdown as a starting point for a bridge to kind of get to that next stage, where
it's really easy for you to parse.
Yeah,
like it's really easy to see the structure of the content.
Because for somebody like you who wants to have basically a simple landing page, but wants to have some structure to the page, along with the ability to add images here and there, then that would probably be.
And if the thing that you're really saving is the Markdown and then rendering it into the HTML, then I don't have to go through a process. The next time I log into my dashboard, you can be like, hey, do you think it would look better like this? Like you can roll out that feature
That's
without
true.
being
That's
like,
true.
oh, please now update different content and we will suggest how it would look best. You can just say, this is the content you've had in the past. It's been very linear. Maybe you would like it this way. And I could be like,
Yeah.
oh, I would like it that way. So
That sounds good.
it seems like a nice way to bridge that along.
So Tim, I think you've earned your
I've
your
earned it.
consulting fee for
that's
this
good.
episode.
That's
So I think
good.
it was good. So you gave me a new idea to think about. Well, like add something to that. Like I said, because that is something that you're right. Because just parsing that would actually not be too much work. Storing it would definitely not be too much work.
No. I mean, it's a
storing
great
text.
format.
So yeah,
It's a great format.
but the other thing I was thinking about asking you today too. You said did you onboard?
And early adopters are going to be more tech savvy, is my gut.
That's correct. Yeah,
Because
probably.
when you're looking at early adopters, you're talking about you and me.
True. And if I would be using this, and my other goal for this is to use it as a project I could use to talk about as part of an interview process.
That'd be great.
Those
too.
would be technical people. So yeah, they'll be evaluating that way. So
Arguably, you could
Absolutely.
also use this for your art department, at least at the beginning, because it would make it easier
That's-
for you
that's
to update
okay.
it.
Yeah, that's where I was going. Whereas I was spending time starting to write it and start to design out for the art department. I was realizing, wait, the first version of this is kind of what I had envisioned for the site build. So why not build the first version site build and then I have a model? Then if I wanted to do something unique for the art department website before the end of the semester, I could, if I have time to do that, I'll be able to kind of, like you said, copy and paste, right? Take the
Yeah.
code from there and just move it over to the other project. And so
Yeah.
try to kill two birds with one stone, if you know that. But you talked about onboarding.
I talked about onboarding.
Didn't you? Weren't
I?
you onboarding some new employee or something like that?
Yeah, a couple of them. Did I mention that last week?
I was curious about the No, I think it was actually a week before that.
Oh, okay.
Because you said you were going through the process of hiring, and we talked about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And
we
then
did
you
a
said,
bunch of
okay,
interviews.
you hired, and then what was like the onboarding process with it? Because it was interesting where, because this came up not just for me thinking about onboarding in the future, but also with I had a friend who's interesting. I was listening to another podcast. It was a small podcast from local because the only reason I found it because through Twitter he said he was on it, and a friend who was an IT guy who went to Kutztown. An IT friend who changed jobs to the Kutztown IT department, and he was talking about his process going from Northampton to Kutztown University, which was kind of an interesting thing, thinking about how he was kind of he was talking about a story and it was kind of relatable in a way. So about your process for onboarding a developer, how did that go and getting them onto your system?
So we're making changes. So like there's a lot of things in flux in the dev team that I primarily work with, and we're making some changes. But like this is the first time we've done onboarding the way that we've done it now. But I think it's worked out pretty well. We've taken each one of the new people. They had about a week of just getting up to speed. Here's our tooling, get set up with local dev, so you can actually do development for the code base that we work on your local machine. Basically meet a lot of the developers that have been at the company for a longer period of time, and they'll cover different things like, this is how we architect this is how the front end works, this is how the build process works.
Do you have how do you do like documentation, or do you have like a repository that you give to somebody new? Like how do you get them into
we have a system that lays out these, here's the things that you have to do. Basically like a checkoff list. So book a meeting with this person to talk about these things. Book a meeting with this person to talk about these things. Make sure that your local dev is set up for this. So that was pretty much the first week of their onboarding. The second week, we're having both of the new devs pair with someone else on the project that person's working with for the entirety, I think, so far of the week. We'll probably go a little bit into the next week with it. So they're really, working closely with another developer. And it's not like, let me show you how to do it and then send you off. It's very much, let me show you how to do it, and now you can do it, but I'm still going to be here. So there's not that frustration where it's like, okay, I think I understand exactly, I'm pretty confident I know what I'm supposed to do here. Then I go and try to do it, and I run into a roadblock, and I have to find someone and message them and get them back on.
So do do you use like a system for like doing peer review, like the code, like kind of?
We have a code review process.
No, but kind of to simply do. So if I wanted to ping you to review my code, is your tool set up where you can easily just log into the same instance of the editor, be able to kind of see what they're working on?
Well, no, for that it's just all, for us it's on GitHub, so it's a pull request, and we're just looking at the code in GitHub.
So you're still doing that, okay?
Yeah. But
I was wondering if you're doing assistance even before they did the pull request
for this. Yes, because when we do the pairing,
Yeah.
it's either just over Zoom and we're screen sharing,
Okay.
or I know you'll love this, Mark. You probably don't know this, but as my primary IDE, I recommend using PHP Storm, which is a JetBrains product. And
soon to be a sponsor of DevFridayShow.com.
Yeah,
So we talk about them so much.
That would be good.
Because Doom Emacs isn't sponsoring us.
Aren't they? They haven't sponsored us yet. No, but JetBrains has this great thing called Code With Me, and you send out a link, and it can connect whoever's hosting the session. You connect to their IDE, and they can conditionally say you can watch, or you can actually code, or you can code in the same file, or you can code anywhere in the same project. And we've had success with that in the past, having a bunch of people even on a Code With Me session doing different things. Like someone will say, hey, I'm in this method, and the way we're changing this, it would be great if we had this dependency. And someone else was able to say, okay, I'll go add that. So just on their IDE, move to the constructor and start adding the dependency. That doesn't force anybody else to follow them. They're editing a different part of the file, while the original developer is still editing the method where they expect the dependency.
Is it doing it all? Is the code file or code the source? Is it remote or
no? The code is on whoever is hosting
okay, so whoever's hosting the instance, then everybody's connecting to that instance of that computer who's editing the code there. Okay.
So if I'm like, hey, let's work on this together, I'm going to send out this Code With Me link. It's going to be in my instance, so my code base. Everybody's connecting to my IDE. They can see where I am. We can see where everybody is.
Okay.
So it's it's the collaboration that you can have on something like a Google Doc, where you're all editing it. You can see who's editing it where, only applied to the IDE. And you can all edit files like, oh, we need a migration for this. Oh, I'll run off and I'll make the migration. And if you want to see what I'm doing, you just hit, oh, look, see where Tim is. And you can jump in and you can pair with me there. But you can we can do what we would call swarm coding, which is a bunch of people doing it. I don't, off the top of my head, know if the two pairs that have been doing this have been using Code With Me. It's one of the tools that I recommended. But they might just be using Zoom too. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I believe all four, both of the new developers and the developers that are pairing with them, I believe all of them use PHP Storm. So it should be totally possible for them to be doing Code With Me. But yeah.
So what do you find could be some of the biggest challenges that you see kind of happens to new people coming into a development team that could maybe if people would think about this beforehand or maybe be prepared for certain scenarios or certain things that would come up? What would be kind of common things that you see?
So you're trying to make a list. So when you start with a new company, yeah.
I'm trying to make this an interesting podcast, Tim.
Is that what that is? Well, I had some stuff for interesting podcasts. We're basically out of time now. I was going to talk to you about professional gaming, but apparently we'll get to that next week.
We have a few minutes left.
We got a little time.
Talk about an esports team.
And maybe this might be a question to be better fleshed out in another show when I have more time to think about it. But a lot of the frustration is it's a new code base, especially if it's an established code base. If you're just like a team that's getting together for a startup and it's all greenfield, all right, that's got a different set of problems. Yeah. But when it's an established code base, it's understanding the conventions, understanding where things are, especially because a lot of the tasks that are probably defined to be done are tasks that are defined in a way that expects that you have some understanding of the system in question, because generally speaking, everybody who's talking about this does, and you don't, because you've just dropped in. So that frustration of well, I don't even know where to find whatever you're talking about, and hopefully that's being mitigated by this pairing concept, where it's like, at least in whatever project you'll likely be moving forward with, you have spent a lot of time with another developer, looking at it, figuring out things, understanding at least the code that's adjacent to it and that touches it. The other thing that at least I have seen is the struggle of being able to develop locally. Like if it's a complex project, now this isn't true if it's a really simple project, because like, let's take Gatsby, the Dev Friday, website. Not a complex project. Very simple for me to pull it down, run a couple commands, get it up and running.
You mean with a lot of different kind of systems are separated from each
other?
but
when you're talking about something that, you've got the code base, you have the database that goes with it. Well, then we have session. Session is in Redis, plus we use Redis. We have queues that run. We have workers that run in the queues. Should you run them? Should you not run them? We provision things with third-party services. For us, we're using telephony vendors that are routing calls to us. Well, how do you do that on your local? And those complexities, because it's easy to get into here's the task I'm trying to do, and then all of a sudden I don't even know how to accomplish it locally, and even if I can figure that out, I don't even know if it's going to work because do I have the right configuration for whatever dependencies and third-party dependencies it has? I don't mean third-party in terms of like libraries, but third-party in, actual other APIs and services that you're connecting with. So I think that, and then there's just like the getting up to speed on the process and the flow and how things like code review go and how you connect with somebody. So making it easy for the new developers to feel comfortable with the rest of the team is a key to it. Speaking of, as a team grows, you want the team to be comfortable working together, having fun together, especially when you're a remote team. So there is that importance of we got to find some way to do more than just talk about work.
You playing games together?
Playing games together, right?
What games you playing?
This is what I'm trying to figure out. Not like the traditional games, but just like so. I don't know. Have you ever played Keep Talking Nobody Explodes?
I've seen the box.
Right. Okay.
Store.
So it's on
but
Steam.
I haven't played it yet.
Apparently, it's on Steam. It's on Android,
Isn't
iOS.
no, isn't that a board? No, you're right. Is it just
No, it's
a
not
game?
a board game.
Okay,
Yeah.
maybe
So
I'm thinking of
you
something
can get it
else.
on Steam.
Yeah.
You can get it on iOS. You can get it on Android.
So yeah, I haven't played that yet.
You can get it on Nintendo Switch, I think. And what it is you're presented with a box that looks like a bomb, the UI in the screen. And the way you're supposed to play the game is one person drives it, keyboard, mouse, or controls if it's a console game, right? And they look at it. Everybody else gets a printed PDF of a bomb defusal manual. And the person who's trying to defuse it has to describe it to them. It's like, all right, there's like 4 wires, and they're all different colors. And then you tell them things, and then you're like, people are paging through this manual going, 4 wires. Okay, yeah, 4 wires, 4 different. What are the colors? Because it's like, if you see a red, then you should do that. And it's that idea where now you're communicating, right? You have to be working together. And teams start, a larger group of players will start splitting off into smaller teams where, all right, the person trying to defuse the bomb will tell you that, what they see, and you'll try to figure out what to do with it, and then come back to them with the answer. So a game like that, not a game like, oh, we're all going to play, CS Source, but a game like that that's going to engage an entire group. But the issue is, if you want to play it, you have to have it installed on your computer. I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to install it on people's computer, and I don't want them to like do a remote control over Zoom or something like that. Just that doesn't work anyway. Plus, screen share doesn't make sense because it has to be one person sees it.
And it's
yeah.
Okay. Oh, well, I'm curious. I haven't checked out this game, so I'm curious so you're saying you have to install this, so it's a desktop.
It'll run on Linux, Windows, whatever your operating system.
What do you think really requires it to be a desktop game? Because based on the way you described it, it should be an online game.
You can rotate it. You can rotate it I think it's a little bit more than you want to put it in a browser. But maybe not. Maybe they just have said they can't. But so it's the constraint that we have, right? And I know there's services out there that let you play games and stream them. Like your gaming system is remote, and they're doing low latency streaming through a browser. That was Google's thing, Google's strategy or something like that. Does Steam have their own? I haven't.
Steam does it.
That one I need to know, because what I'm trying to figure out is how I can put this someplace that I can give the login to that to an individual team member and say, okay, you can play the game there in your browser. You don't have to install it.
Oh, in your browser though.
That's the thing. I want it. And
I don't know.
So I found a couple places that do virtual computers that you can install it. They just were really clunky. So the last thing I ran across is this thing called Remo, which is low latency desktop streaming. I can't install it on my computer because for some reason it doesn't work with the current version of Pop OS.
Yeah.
However, I figure I can just spin up an EC2 instance, put Remo on it, and then connect it through the browser. I played with it last night on a machine that whoever they partnered with it was like in France. So my latency wasn't good because it was on the other side of the world, but it wasn't bad either.
Watch that EC2 instance, man. It could the cost of that.
Well, you bet I can just take it down when I'm done. Play it for an hour, then turn it off. So that's where I'm going. We'll see if I have success with this, and we'll see if it works for next week. Because it's kind of my plan.
I know.
Have you ever done that with all the gaming?
I have not, and honestly, my team they're 2-0.
Really?
Yes, they're crushing it.
So you got another game next week. So we'll get
another game next week. Another game next week. Could be 3-0. Well, they're technically 3-0 with the bye. They had a bye week, but yeah, they're 2-0, and they got probably the next 6 weeks of games. Hopefully, it's going to go in the tournament. And first year into the NJCAA, esports spring. Hopefully, we'll be champions.
That's nice. So
I'm excited. No, they're doing really good. They actually got a little bit bored by the last game because like the school was not that good. So yeah.
So next week, get an update on Mark's esports team. We'll see if I could successfully pull off playing a game remotely. Because you've seen services like this, right? But then I looked for them yesterday, and I didn't find any that popped up.
But the browser is an interesting component part. Like you said, if I just wanted to connect to another system, we could. But I don't know.